Hi, Matt Miller. How are you?
Hello.
We're both so vain. We have competing ring lights.
Yeah, vain, and in my case, under the mistaken impression, people probably want to see me better.
Yes, we
Oh,
do.
we do.
We do. You were just saying you've been listening to the Flynn hearings, and I hate to, like, we both said the same thing. We're like, well, it doesn't matter. He's going to get pardoned anyway. But you said he's losing, but it doesn't matter because nothing matters.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's pretty clear that he's going to lose the panel at the D.C. Circuit is going to be reversed, and it's going to be sent back to the judge. But it doesn't matter because they'll be able to draw it out until after the election. They might appeal to the Supreme Court or something. But if he loses here, he'll get a pardon. I mean, that's been his game all along since he got rid of his kind of respected lawyer and hired this foxnut kook that he's had representing him for the past 9 months or so.
Yeah. Okay. I said this, I think it was to Barb McQuaid, whatever other case Trump was delaying. I'm like, I know you've dedicated your life to it, but the law is stupid. I don't understand. I mean, I was talking about the E. Jean Carroll thing. I mean, why is it the rules different for one man? Bill Clinton had to testify, right? Had to give DNA. Like it is the deadline for him having to give DNA and testify. He has lost at the Supreme Court. The E. Jean Carroll case should be moving forward. What's going to happen with that?
I don't know, but whatever happens, it won't happen before the election. I think one of the things that has happened is the courts have absolutely failed us in the Trump era. And it's not just their decisions on substance. It's the fact that they have allowed Trump to play the game he's wanted to play, which is to delay and avoid any final rulings. And with everything, when it comes to subpoenas from Congress, when it comes to subpoenas from the district attorney, he's able to push everything out, which is, it's again, he doesn't care about the merits of these rules. He doesn't care about, deep constitutional questions about separations of powers. He just wants to delay everything past the election, and the courts have allowed him to play that game, and it has been a massive institutional failure on their part.
Yeah. Well, you said my hot take on Michael Flynn in court again today. Remember when we didn't have years-long legal sagas over whether the president's top advisors would have to go to jail? Let's go back to that. I mean, it's just every norm, and this is why we called you this morning, and thank you for doing this last minute, Matt, because every story is more terrifying than the last. Obviously, all the reporting on Russia that we already know, but that he's actively having them change intelligence, soften intelligence assessments, and throw in other countries to distract from what we know is happening, that Russia is actively trying to get him installed illegitimately again, right?
Yeah.
So we have that coming at us. He heavily hinted at the John Durham, they were caught, Spygate, caught red-handed, let's see what happens to them. Well, that's coming, right? That's one of the October surprises, is whatever.
Except as someone said to me the other day, it's not really an October surprise. Barr has been telegraphing it's coming, so it's just an October eventuality. It is happening. It won't be a surprise at all.
I mean, he almost as much as said as if it's Susan Rice, she'll be either under investigation or indicted by October, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
pretty much.
They're manufacturing the whole Hillary, lock her up. Anyway, I don't. Okay, what I called you for, not all that, but everybody is obviously freaking out about the post office and about vote by mail in the middle of a pandemic. And everything I read, I'm like, is this legal? Get me, Matt Miller. What? But what I don't want to happen, Matt, is all of us November 1 to be like, well, wait a minute, that's not legal. He can't. And I'm like, that's not going to stop him from doing it. So this is what the reporting is. And obviously now, once again, like with Ukraine, like with all of this, Republicans will aid and abet him and try to protect him. So they're all gearing up to fight vote by mail, which many states have been doing successfully for years. So now Republicans are all on board with this. Okay. But around the same time Trump mused about delaying the election, aides and advisors began scrambling to ponder possible executive actions he could take to curb mail-in voting, everything from directing the Postal Service to not deliver certain ballots to stopping local officials from counting them after Election Day. Matt?
Yeah.
What? How?
Yeah.
Legal? Not legal. Help me.
So it's complicated. So look, there are a lot of things. First of all, the good news is there are a lot of things that relate to the election and counting of votes where the administration has no power at all. Elections are held by states and administered by, in some cases, with the help of localities. And the Trump administration doesn't have any power to direct states to say stop counting votes, or if a state has a rule that they're going to count any vote that's postmarked by election day rather than received by election day. The Trump administration doesn't have the power to do that. What he does have the
but aren't they going to do however long Brooks Brothers riot like they did in 2000?
Now they do have the power to go to court and try to stop counting and try to to argue over the rules, the same way that Democrats have the power to go to court to try to force votes to be counted and to try to force restrictive voting rules to be struck down by courts. And the Democratic Party has been pretty aggressive and pretty effective the last few years in doing that around the country. If you don't follow the Mark Elias on Twitter, you should, and because he recounts his work. He's kind of the lead Democratic election lawyer, and they do a very effective job. But look, they're going to try. He can certainly, the Republican Party and the Trump campaign can try to use the courts to shut down voting and shut down counting of votes and to make it harder to vote. And that's not even really a Trump thing. That's been the core Republican position for a couple of decades now, even without Trump. I think the scariest thing he can do, though, which gets to your underlying question, is in a time when we're going to see people voting by mail in numbers we've never seen before, even close. He can actively, and is already actively, frustrating the post office's ability to deliver the mail.
Well, he's breaking it, and then he's saying, as he did yesterday, well, the post office can't handle it. It's like, well, right, and they won't give money. They deliberately are not giving money to help the post office handle this during a pandemic, right? They're doing what Republicans always do. They're breaking government and then saying, oh, look, government doesn't work, see?
Yeah, that is exactly right. And the scenario that was floated in that story that you mentioned, which he would just order them not to deliver ballots. He doesn't really have to do that. He can just break the post office, which he's already doing, and make it impossible for the post office to deliver ballots in time. And you can see that with the hack he's appointed to be the Postmaster General, them intentionally breaking the post office more in Democratic areas than in Republican-leaning areas.
Thank you.
That's what they'll try to do. Now, look, this kind of goes back to the thing we started talking about before we got into the post office. The remedy for Democrats in this situation is the courts, but the courts have been such an imperfect remedy because they've been slow.
And he always he always wins by delaying.
Feckless. Yeah, and they've been feckless, and so they could. I think it's a remedy we can't really count on. And I think what people are going to have to do is get their ballots in early.
Thank you.
If they're in a position to drop the ballots off directly with their whoever their local election official is,
just going to say.
Dropbox,
check and recheck.
You can vote in person.
Yeah.
If
vote
you can
early.
safely vote in person, that is the thing to do, and not count on the Trump post office to deliver your ballot in time.
Yeah. Okay, just because then this gets even more terrifying. Because John Yoo, the torture guy, that guy that said torture's okay. Okay, so he's been advising the Trump administration on. Yeah. Okay. He said it didn't appear Trump could take significant executive action on mail-in voting. Some suggested, though, Trump could try to stop local officials from counting remote ballots after Election Day and direct the postal office to not deliver certain ballots to voters using an emergency declaration. One expert said he can't order anything directly. Others argued the Postmaster General, the Trump ally and Republican fundraiser, might still be influenced by Trump's statements. This whole article didn't give me any peace on right?
No, it shouldn't. And again, he can't. I do not believe he can direct a local official to do anything with respect to counting of ballots. But he can direct the postmaster to do whatever he wants. Can he do it legally? Not necessarily. Can he do it in a way that's legal-ish enough that John Roberts blesses it, or at least refuses to rule on it in a timely manner? I think that's very much an open question. I mean, if we're going to put our faith in John Roberts, I think that's a given the fact that John Roberts was the deciding vote to strike down the Voting Rights Act in the first place, I wouldn't, and has been, forced all the Wisconsin voters during the primary to go to the polls in the middle of the pandemic rather than be allowed to vote by mail.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put any faith in 5 Republican votes on the Supreme Court to save our democracy in this situation.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right, Matt. We're the ones we're waiting for. We're going to have to do this ourselves to the degree we can. I keep saying check and recheck your registration. That's the first thing they're trying to do, is knock enough people off the rolls. But as you say, vote early if you can. Take it to a drop box if you can. I think we can't underestimate how many October surprises are coming our way via Russia, via John Durham. I mean, as a former DOJ spokesman, your jaw must have just dropped with this Barr interview. What did he say? You tweeted this. Democrats are now the Rousseauian, what is he? Revolutionary Party that believes in tearing down the system. They're not interested in compromise. He called them communists and fascists at the same time.
Yeah,
you
right.
said this clip is such a revealing look into the worldview of Bill Barr, partisan warrior for the reactionary right. And not to mention, as you and I talked about, most of the people getting arrested and the vast, huge majority are right-wing extremists in these protests, Boogaloo Boys, right? And he won't talk about. He just doesn't talk about that.
Right. I mean, two big problems with that interview. Number one, that the Attorney General of the United States holds those beliefs. The attorney, I mean, he is basically an unreconstructed, authoritarian, member of, I'd say, kind of member of the authoritarian right vanguard with a strong hint of kind of Catholic sensibilities in there. And I mean that almost, he mentioned Rousseauian. He was going back to kind of a French Revolution idea where you had the Jacobins turning on each other. During the French Revolution, Bill Barr would have been the guy trying to resurrect the authority of the church and the king. I mean, it's kind of that old school strain of right-wing authoritarianism, reactionary authoritarianism. So you want, number one, you have an attorney general who has these kind of nakedly anti-democratic beliefs. But the second problem is that he would just be out so openly talking this way as the attorney general. The attorney general is supposed to be the person in the cabinet that more than any other is removed from politics. His or her decisions are supposed to be able to be, he's supposed to act in a way that his decisions will be unquestioned by the American public. They may disagree on the merits of his decisions, but they will at least think that the attorney general is such a non-political figure that he made them on the merits. When you see an attorney general out openly attacking the left and describing the left as anti-democratic and fascistic, do you have any reason to believe that a member of the Democratic Party or a member of an organized liberal movement in the country would get equal treatment under the law from this attorney general as someone on the right? You can't possibly agree. You can't possibly believe that when you see the open contempt with which he holds people on the left in this country. It is a shocking way for an attorney general to discuss politics in a pluralistic society.
Really want him to be prosecuted when all this is okay. And finally, just because this is 2020, you said, did I dream this, or was this really reported this weekend that Trump asked the South Dakota governor about adding his face to Mount Rushmore, and the White House response wasn't to deny it, but to note it's federal, not state monument, as if the fact that he's also an idiot helps.
I know.
I love the picture of all the other fathers just like with their hands like they look like the scream emoticons if they put Trump up there, just like, no.
I mean, and he had this conversation with the governor of South Dakota several months ago. In the middle of a pandemic, which he has failed miserably at it, he thinks is the time to I've done so well that I'd be on
taking us into the next depression.
So,
right? Yeah.
So delusional. But by the way, that was a lesson. I mean, the White House staff come out and lie on his behalf all the time, but I think they knew they couldn't lie about that one because the minute they lied and said he never did it, he would go tweet, "Hey, shouldn't I be on Mount Rushmore?" Which naturally this week he did. He did it yesterday.
Oh God. Okay, if he means actually, like, can we strap him to it? Could that be like, like Alcatraz? Then the answer is yes. Okay, Matthew, thanks for doing this last minute. We appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.
It's a really dystopian show of epic proportions. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks. I need to get one of those beep buttons too. So
yes, thank you. Okay, let's turn our ring lights off at the same time.
Oh, you first. No, you go first.
Good night.
Oh, he's going to fake you out.
Good night, Mother. Okay. Love you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye.
Bye.